Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that everything you are today was built by choices you made years ago, and everything you will become is being built by choices you're making right now. That thought is both frightening and powerful. Frightening because it means there are no more excuses. Powerful because it means you are not stuck, you are not finished, you are not broken beyond repair. Most people think change happens when life gives them a second chance. The truth is, change happens when you stop waiting for one. You don't rebuild your life by wishing things were easier. You rebuild it by becoming stronger. You don't rebuild yourself in comfort. You rebuild yourself in courage, discipline, and uncomfortable honesty. Right now, in this very moment, there is a version of you that is stronger, wiser, more focused, and more disciplined than the one sitting here today. That version is not created by luck, motivation, or sudden miracles. That version is created by decisions. Small, uncomfortable, consistent decisions, made when no one is watching and no applause is coming. Personal responsibility is the foundation of transformation because it places the power of change directly into your hands instead of leaving it in the hands of circumstances, other people, or luck. When a person accepts personal responsibility, they stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I do about this?" That shift in thinking is not small, it is the beginning of real growth. Without responsibility, life becomes a story of excuses. With responsibility, life becomes a story of progress. Many people believe they need better conditions to improve their lives. They wait for the economy to improve, for someone to give them a chance, or for their situation to magically change. But personal responsibility teaches that waiting is a form of surrender. It means understanding that even if the world is unfair, even if circumstances are difficult, you still own your choices, your actions, and your attitude. You may not be able to control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. That mindset alone can turn obstacles into opportunities. Taking responsibility also builds self-respect. When you hold yourself accountable, you stop lying to yourself. You stop pretending that you're powerless. You begin to see that your habits, decisions, and daily actions are shaping your future. This can be uncomfortable at first because it forces you to face your mistakes honestly. But that discomfort is healthy. It is the feeling of growth beginning. A person who never takes responsibility never learns, and a person who never learns never evolves. Personal responsibility changes how you handle failure. Instead of being crushed by mistakes, you start to study them. Failure becomes feedback instead of defeat. You ask, "What did this teach me?" rather than, "Why does this always happen to me?" This approach builds resilience. Every setback becomes a stepping stone instead of a stopping point. You stop wasting energy on blame and start investing energy in solutions. This is what separates people who stay stuck from people who move forward. Another powerful effect of personal responsibility is the control it gives you over your inner world. Life is unpredictable, but your response is within your control. You choose how you think. You choose what you focus on. You choose whether you grow bitter or better. When you truly accept responsibility, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of life and start seeing yourself as the architect of your character. That shift alone can make a person stronger, calmer, and more grounded in difficult situations. It also creates consistency. When you stop blaming others, you stop looking for shortcuts. You understand that discipline is not punishment, it is protection. You begin to build routines that support your growth instead of habits that sabotage it. You wake up earlier, you manage your time better, you guard your energy, and you make choices that align with who you want to become. These actions seem small, but they compound over time and quietly reshape your entire life. Personal responsibility improves relationships as well. Instead of always pointing fingers, you learn to communicate honestly. You admit when you're wrong. You apologize when necessary. You stop expecting others to fix what you refuse to fix in yourself. This creates trust and maturity. People respect those who stand in ownership of their lives because it shows strength, not weakness. Most importantly, personal responsibility gives you freedom. It may feel heavy at first because it removes excuses and comfort zones, but in reality, it is liberating. When you realize that your life is largely shaped by your daily decisions, you stop feeling helpless. You stop waiting to be saved. You begin to save yourself through consistent, intentional action. Transformation does not come from wishing, hoping, or blaming. It comes from the quiet, firm decision to take ownership of your life and rebuild it from the inside out. Self-discipline is the bridge between where you are and who you want to become because it is the force that turns intention into action and desire into results. Many people want a better life, better health, better finances, or better habits, But wanting is not enough. Without discipline, desire remains a dream. Discipline is what takes the invisible vision in your mind and gives it a physical form through consistent effort. Self-discipline begins with the ability to delay gratification. It is choosing what you want most over what you want now. It's waking up early instead of hitting the snooze button, choosing to work on your goals instead of wasting hours on distractions, and choosing healthy habits over temporary comfort. These choices are rarely dramatic, and they are often invisible to others, but they quietly shape your future. The gap between potential and reality is closed by these small, repeated decisions. Discipline is often misunderstood as harshness or restriction, but in reality, it is a form of self-respect. When you practice discipline, you are telling yourself that your goals matter, that your future matters, and that you are worth the effort. It creates trust within yourself. You begin to believe in your own reliability because you do what you say you will do. That inner trust becomes a powerful source of confidence. You stop doubting your abilities and start relying on your character. One of the greatest strengths of self-discipline is that it builds momentum. At first, it feels difficult and uncomfortable. You may feel resistance from your old habits and your comfort zone, but each disciplined action makes the next one easier. Momentum replaces motivation. You no longer rely on feeling inspired. You rely on your routines. This is important because motivation is temporary, but discipline is stable. Motivation comes and goes, but discipline stays and carries you forward even on days when you feel tired, bored, or discouraged. Self-discipline also teaches emotional control. Instead of being controlled by moods, impulses, or external pressures, you learn to act based on principles and long-term vision. You stop saying, "I don't feel like it," and start saying, "This is what I decided to become." This internal shift strengthens your mind. You learn that emotions are signals, not commands. You can feel fear and still act. You can feel tired and still show up. You can feel doubt and still move forward. Another powerful aspect of self-discipline is its cumulative effect. Just like poor habits compound into problems over time, disciplined habits compound into success. Reading a few pages every day builds knowledge. Saving a small amount consistently builds financial stability. Practicing a skill daily builds mastery. None of these things happen overnight, but they become unstoppable over time. Discipline makes progress predictable because it removes dependence on luck or perfect timing. Self-discipline also creates clarity. When you commit to a disciplined life, you set standards for yourself. You decide what you will accept and what you will not tolerate in your behavior. This removes confusion and reduces inner conflict. You are no longer torn between comfort and growth because you have already chosen growth as your priority. Your life becomes more organized, focused, and purposeful. There are moments when discipline feels like a burden. Those are the moments when growth is happening. Comfort feels good, but it rarely changes you. Discipline stretches you, shapes you, and strengthens you in ways comfort never can. It builds your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. That identity shift is powerful because your actions begin to match your self-image. Self-discipline is not about perfection. It is about consistency. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be faithful to your process. You will have days where you fall short, make mistakes, or lose focus. Discipline teaches you to return, not retreat. You get back on track without drama, without excuses, and without self-destruction. That quiet persistence is what slowly moves you from the person you are today to the person you are capable of becoming. Failure is not a verdict. It is feedback for growth because it carries information, lessons, and direction rather than a permanent judgment about your worth or potential. When people treat failure as a final sentence, they stop trying, stop learning, and stop moving forward. But when failure is viewed as feedback, it becomes a tool rather than a trauma. It tells you what didn't work, what needs adjustment, and where you must improve. Instead of crushing your spirit, it can refine your strategy and strengthen your character. Most people fear failure because they attach their identity to results. They think failing means they are weak, incapable, or unworthy. This belief turns mistakes into emotional wounds rather than learning experiences. When you separate who you are from what happened, you gain power. A failed attempt does not define you. It informs you. It shows you which direction not to go and which skills you still need to develop. In this way, every failure becomes a step forward, not backward. Failure builds resilience in a way that success cannot. Success can make you comfortable while failure forces you to grow. Each time you fall and rise again, your mental strength increases. You learn how to handle disappointment, criticism, and uncertainty. You discover that you can survive difficult moments. This realization alone creates courage. Once you learn that failure cannot destroy you, you stop being afraid to try. You begin to take calculated risks and pursue bigger goals because you understand that even if you fail, you will come out wiser. Feedback from failure also sharpens your self-awareness. It forces you to examine your habits, decisions, and mindset. You start asking honest questions. Was I prepared enough? Did I manage my time correctly? Did I believe in myself, or did I hesitate? These reflections don't weaken you, they make you stronger. They turn confusion into clarity and disappointment into a roadmap for improvement. Without failure, you would have no reason to look deeper, and without reflection, growth remains shallow. Another powerful aspect of failure as feedback is that it teaches humility. Success can make people arrogant, but failure makes them human. It reminds you that you are a work in progress. It keeps you teachable. When you are open to learning, you can receive advice, accept correction, and improve faster. Humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking less selfishly and being more honest about what you need to work on. That mindset attracts growth instead of stagnation. Failure also trains patience. Meaningful success rarely happens quickly. Setbacks, delays, and losses teach you that progress takes time. You learn to stay committed even when results aren't immediate. This patience becomes a strength because you stop chasing shortcuts and start trusting the process. You understand that mastery is built through repetition, not perfection. Every failed attempt adds one more layer of experience to your skill set, making your eventual success stronger and more sustainable. Viewing failure as feedback also strengthens your problem-solving ability. When something goes wrong, you don't collapse, you analyze. You start looking for patterns, root causes, and better strategies. Your mind becomes more flexible and creative. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you say, this approach doesn't work, what's the better one? This shift turns obstacles into challenges and challenges into opportunities for innovation. Emotionally, failure teaches you how to regulate your inner world. You learn to sit with discomfort without letting it control you. You feel the disappointment, but you don't let it turn into despair. You feel the frustration, but you don't allow it to become bitterness. This emotional discipline is essential for long-term success because life will always have unpredictable moments. Those who treat failure as feedback develop emotional stability, while those who see it as a verdict become fragile. Failure, when understood correctly, is one of the greatest teachers in life. It strips away illusions, exposes weaknesses, and pushes you toward growth. It doesn't arrive to ruin you, it arrives to mold you. Each mistake becomes a message. Each setback becomes a lesson. Each fall becomes a chance to rise stronger, wiser, and more prepared than before. Daily habits shape destiny more than occasional inspiration, because what you do consistently becomes who you are, while what you do occasionally barely touches the surface of your life. Inspiration is powerful, but it is temporary. It comes in waves, lifts your emotions, and makes you feel capable of greatness, but it fades as quickly as it arrives. Habits, on the other hand, stay with you. They operate quietly in the background, guiding your actions even when you are not thinking about them. The human mind and body are designed to follow patterns. Repeated actions create neural pathways that make behaviors automatic. When you repeat a habit every day, it stops requiring motivation and starts functioning like a default setting. This is why habits are so powerful. They shape your mornings, your thoughts, your energy, and your outcomes without demanding constant effort. A person who reads 10 pages a day will become knowledgeable over time without dramatic effort, while someone who reads only when inspired will stay inconsistent and stagnant. Occasional inspiration feels good, but it can be deceptive. It tricks people into believing they are making progress because they feel fired up for a moment. But progress is not built on feelings, it is built on behavior. When inspiration fades, most people return to their old routines. Habits do the opposite. They keep you moving forward even when you feel tired, bored, or unmotivated. They make growth a normal part of your life instead of a special event. Daily habits also shape your self-image. When you consistently act in a disciplined way, you start seeing yourself as a disciplined person. When you consistently avoid challenges, you begin to see yourself as someone who escapes difficulty. Your identity is shaped by what you practice every day. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. This is why small, repeated actions are more powerful than big, rare bursts of effort. Another key aspect is compound effect. Think of habits like interest in a bank account. A small deposit every day may seem insignificant in the beginning, but over time it grows into something substantial. Bad habits work the same way. A small daily indulgence in laziness, negative thinking, or poor choices compounds into major problems over months and years. Good habits practiced daily quietly build a strong foundation for success, health, and stability. Habits also reduce decision fatigue. When something becomes a habit, you don't waste energy deciding whether to do it. You simply do it. This conserves mental energy for more important decisions. For example, someone who has a habit of exercising at the same time every day doesn't debate it internally. It happens automatically. This automation of positive behaviors makes life more structured and productive, while reliance on inspiration creates chaos and inconsistency. Daily habits influence emotional stability as well. Habits such as journaling, exercising, reading, and reflecting build mental strength over time. They help regulate stress, focus the mind, and improve mood. When someone relies only on inspirational moments, their emotional state becomes unpred. You choose consistency over comfort, discipline over distraction, and long-term growth over short-term pleasure. Inspiration can start the journey, but habits carry it forward. The path of your life is carved by what you repeatedly do, think, and focus on each day, and that quiet repetition determines where you eventually arrive. Environment and associations influence personal progress because human behavior is deeply shaped by what surrounds us and who we spend time with. No one grows in isolation. Thoughts, attitudes, standards, and habits are constantly being absorbed from the world around us, often without conscious awareness. When you place yourself in a supportive, disciplined, growth-oriented environment, improvement becomes natural. When you surround yourself with negativity, laziness, or complacency, stagnation becomes normal. The people you associate with have a powerful impact on your mindset. Conversations influence beliefs. Attitudes spread. Energy is contagious. If you spend time with individuals who complain, make excuses, and avoid responsibility, you will slowly begin to think and behave the same way, even if you don't intend to. This is not weakness, it is human nature. The opposite is also true. When you spend time with people who value self-improvement, discipline, honesty, and ambition, you are challenged to rise to their level. Your environment also shapes your standards. What you see daily becomes what you accept as normal. If everyone around you tolerates mediocrity, procrastination, and lack of purpose, you will subconsciously lower your expectations for yourself. On the other hand, being around high standards raises your own standards. You begin to see what is possible. You begin to stretch yourself because excellence no longer feels unusual. It feels achievable. Physical surroundings are just as influential as social ones. A cluttered, chaotic space breeds mental fog and distraction. A clean, organized environment promotes clarity and focus. The music you listen to, the content you consume, and the visual stimuli around you all affect your mindset. Constant exposure to negative news, toxic entertainment, or demotivating content gradually weakens your mental strength. Positive, educational, and inspiring inputs work in the opposite direction, feeding your mind with ideas that support growth. Associations influence discipline and accountability. When no one around you values growth, it becomes easy to quit. There is no standard to measure yourself against, no pressure to stay consistent, and no encouragement to persevere. But when you are part of an environment where people expect excellence, suddenly your actions matter more. You feel responsible not only to yourself but to the group. This sense of accountability sharpens your discipline and keeps you aligned with your goals. Another important aspect is belief shaping. The people closest to you often determine what you believe is possible. If those around you doubt your dreams, mock your goals, and downplay your potential, their words slowly plant seeds of doubt in your mind. Doubt grows quietly and can eventually convince you to play small. In contrast, being surrounded by people who believe in growth, effort, and persistence strengthens your belief in yourself. Even when you feel uncertain, their mindset reinforces your confidence. Your environment can either reduce or increase friction. Positive environments make good habits easier and bad habits harder. If your space is designed for productivity, learning, and health, you naturally move in that direction. If your environment encourages distraction, comfort, and indulgence, it becomes very difficult to progress. This is why changing your environment is often more powerful than trying to force change through willpower alone. Willpower is limited, but environment works continuously. Associations also influence your emotional stability. Supportive relationships provide encouragement during struggles and clarity during confusion. Toxic relationships drain your energy, create constant stress, and keep you stuck in emotional cycles. The emotional state you live in each day directly affects your productivity, creativity, and decision-making. When your environment supports peace, discipline, and clarity, your mind is free to focus on growth instead of survival. Personal progress is not only about internal strength, it is about external alignment. You may have strong dreams and intentions, but if your environment constantly pulls you in the opposite direction, growth becomes a constant battle. When you intentionally choose your surroundings and associations, you stop fighting the current and start moving with it. Your standards rise, your focus sharpens, and your growth becomes more natural and sustainable than forced or inconsistent effort. Consistent action, not perfect conditions, creates lasting change because real progress is built through movement, not waiting. Many people postpone their growth while waiting for the right time. Better resources, more confidence, or fewer obstacles. This waiting becomes a trap. Life rarely provides perfect timing, complete clarity, or ideal circumstances. If you wait for everything to align before you start, you will never begin. Action taken in imperfect conditions is what creates momentum and direction. Perfectionism often disguises itself as preparation. People convince themselves they need one more plan, one more course, or more information before taking the first step. In reality, they are often avoiding discomfort or fear of failure. Consistent action breaks this cycle. It forces learning through experience rather than theory. Each step forward, even if imperfect, teaches more than endless waiting ever could. Action produces feedback, and feedback produces improvement. Consistency matters more than intensity because intense effort without continuity fades quickly. A person who works on their goal for 10 minutes every day will eventually outperform someone who works for hours only when they feel inspired. Consistency builds rhythm. Rhythm builds discipline. Discipline builds results. Small actions done consistently create an identity shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who plans to change and start seeing yourself as someone who acts. Perfect conditions are an illusion because every stage of life comes with its own set of challenges. If you are young, you may lack experience. If you are older, you may lack time or energy. If you have money, you may lack direction. If you lack money, you may feel limited. There is always something missing. Growth has never been about having everything you need. It has always been about using what you have. Consistent action trains you to work with reality instead of waiting for fantasy. Another important aspect is the compounding effect of repeated effort. When you act consistently, you build layers of progress that stack over time. Each day's effort strengthens the result of the previous day. At first, this growth is invisible, and this is where many people quit. They don't see immediate results and assume their actions are pointless. But consistency works beneath the surface before it becomes visible. Just like a tree grows roots before it grows branches, your efforts are taking shape even when you can't see them. Consistent action also builds confidence. Confidence is not something you wait to feel before acting. It is something that grows as a result of action. Each time you take a step, keep a promise to yourself, or follow through on a commitment, you strengthen your self-trust. Self-trust becomes the foundation of real confidence. You stop doubting your ability to handle challenges because you have proven to yourself that you can show up regularly. Waiting for perfect conditions also creates fear of discomfort. When you act consistently despite imperfect conditions, you become comfortable with discomfort. You learn that feeling uncertain, nervous, or unprepared does not stop you. You move anyway. This mindset builds mental toughness. You stop being controlled by your emotions and start being guided by your purpose. Over time, discomfort becomes familiar and growth becomes normal. Consistent action shapes your focus. When you act regularly, your mind becomes tuned to opportunity instead of excuses. You start noticing solutions instead of problems. You become proactive instead of reactive. This mental shift accelerates progress. You no longer waste energy complaining about what you don't have. You invest energy into building with what you do have. That focus sharpens your discipline and strengthens your direction. Real change is rarely dramatic. It is often quiet, repetitive, and unglamorous. It is built in small daily efforts that no one applauds. But those quiet efforts eventually compound into visible transformation. The world celebrates big results, but those results are born from small, consistent actions taken long before anyone noticed. When you stop waiting for perfect conditions and commit to consistent action, you take control of your growth. You stop depending on luck, timing, or permission. You create progress through persistence, effort, and steady forward motion that reshapes your future without needing ideal circumstances. Rebuilding yourself is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you were meant to be. It's about taking responsibility, building discipline, learning from failure, shaping powerful habits, choosing the right environment, and taking action even when conditions aren't perfect. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. You just need courage and consistency. Your past does not define you. Your mistakes do not limit you. Your current situation is not your final destination. Every day gives you a new chance to rebuild stronger, wiser, and more focused than before. The moment you decide to take control of your growth, you take control of your future. You don't rebuild your life in a single day. You build it one choice at a time. And it all starts with a decision to rise, to fight, and to believe in your potential.